It's kind of weird that this game doesn't actually have playoff implications, really, despite both teams being ranked high. I'd wager to say that Georgia's pretty safely in, even if they lose this game. At this point, this isn't a conference game for Georgia Tech. Stuff would have to break like crazy for them to make it into the ACC championship game. That's really the only way they get in. And so even if they win this, they're not going to get an at-large bid. So this is just because of hate. Good old-fashioned hate.
There is still a scenario where Georgia could end up not making it if they lost Georgia Tech and then made the SEC championship.
The only scenario, yes, I think that's possible.
It's absurd and probably wouldn't happen.
If they lost to Georgia Tech and
by 70,
they
as
fell
always,
out of the top 10, and the teams that would get the at-large bids, which they probably would, losing to Georgia Tech.
You think they fall to the top 10?
Even falling from 4, I think they could fall to 11.
I think that's very unlikely.
That being their second loss of the year. And then they
this is a road game
in the SEC championship game, and they lose that. Again, if they fall to 11 and they don't play in the SEC championship game, they could be out as well. I think there's a possibility if they fell to 10 and lost the SEC championship game, they'd be moved out.
I think we're making up some dreams and wishes.
If they
here.
lost to Georgia Tech and then lost to A&M by 75.
Well, once again, okay, sure.
That's always our go-to is 75. Everyone loses by 75.
I maintain this game largely has no playoff implications, which almost makes it better in a lot of ways because it comes down to pride and hate.
Yeah.
Which is the real root of any rivalry, in that these two teams don't like each other. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Georgia Tech hates the way that last year's game went. Mm-hmm. They probably have thought about it almost every day since. Haynes King has probably laid in bed at night just thinking, man, one more play. And Georgia probably also is... They feel lucky that they escaped last year, but they probably don't like how that game went either. They're used to beating up on Georgia Tech. They don't like that they let them hang around. So we go into this game. It's Georgia at Georgia Tech, but it's in Mercedes-Benz. Georgia Tech sold out, and Georgia's favored by 13.5 in this game. Y'all's thoughts?
For one, just like talking about the game, Georgia going into this game, because the only other game that will be played is the Egg Bowl at this point for the weekend. They will not know their fate in the SEC championship prior to kick because the two games that really matter are the Lone Star Showdown and the Iron Bowl. So they're going to come into this game and play with a ton of passion. Because if, let's say this was Saturday night and the Iron Bowl was in the afternoon, they knew they were in the SEC championship. Do you play with as much fire knowing that you're going to play in the SEC championship in that same building a week later? Sanders would probably argue yes because you care about rivalry games. I'd argue I think you would take a little bit of your foot off the gas, but in this one they have no reason to because they don't know anything, and they would like to potentially maintain a top 4 spot in a first-round bye. If they're able to beat up on Georgia Tech and that be the last point on their resume, they very well could be in the argument with Texas Tech if Texas Tech were to beat BYU again of who gets that spot. And if Georgia has an impressive victory over Georgia Tech, it's hard to argue that they fall from 4 to 5 if that is what the rankings are going into conference championship weekend. Georgia Tech, like Jack said, is coming off. It's to put it into perspective, I think it's the most devastating loss in the past decade for the program, and that includes what happened last week. Flip that. That includes what happened last year at Georgia. Last week's loss to Pitt is the most devastating loss in the past decade for this program. All the stakes, ACC championship bid, playoff bid, 1 game away, and the offense just did not show up.
True home game.
In a true home game, yes.
Yeah, that's just like part of like the in front of your home crowd.
Absolutely.
Like everything should be going in your favor.
Sold out crowd at Bobby Dodd.
It's got the Georgia Tech advances to ACC championship with win.
I can't believe they did that. I still won't forgive ESPN for that. And then you follow that up with what happened in last year's game that was also devastating, as well as Jack alluded to. So I expect them to play with a ton of fire as well and try to come out guns blazing offensively. Georgia Tech in their last 3 games are 1-2. 2 losses. In those 2 losses, they had 121 rushing yards and 151 rushing yards. And their lone win in their last 3, they had 257 in that win. Translation, run the damn ball. Malachi Hosley, Jamal Haynes, Haynes King is the route to victory. It was the route to victory last year. It is the only way Georgia Tech wins this game is if they are able to run the ball on Georgia. And so because of that, it is going to get very, very interesting. Georgia, for them, just turn on the Pitt and NC State tape against Georgia Tech. There are so many holes. There are so many big plays. In those two games, Pitt had 24 plays of 7 yards or more. NC State had 27. Georgia, you would think maybe you could have 35 in this game. And so I think it could get bad for Georgia Tech, which is why you see the spread at 13.5, and that's why you're scared. You're going to have to hope that they can get the same kind of turnover luck that they got last year. They win the turnover battle and force overtime, which then goes to 8 overtimes, of course. And you remember what I said pretty much every single time, every overtime?
Run the damn ball.
Run the damn ball on the
Yeah.
2-point conversions. They didn't, and it ends up losing them the game. They're going to have to run the ball again, of course, in this game. And so I think for the way this plays out, I think both teams are going to have the same game plan, which is going to make this very interesting. I think both teams are going to want to take the air out of the football. For Georgia Tech, they want to limit the possessions in this game by running the ball well so you can maximize the variance. The less possessions in the game, the less times Georgia's offense gets to face your defense.
Minimize the variance?
Maximize the variance. If you play 25 possessions, more often than not, the best team wins out of those 25 possessions.
Yeah.
If you play 7, it could go either way. You play 1 possession, it could go 50-50.
Yeah.
Any way you want.
You're almost maximizing the variance by minimizing the variance.
No, you are minimizing the possessions to maximize the variance.
Correct.
Correct.
Because there's just like less chances.
Why are there less upsets in the NBA playoffs? Because you have to beat a team 4 times.
Correct.
Yeah. There's less variance.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
You're minimizing the variance.
No. Because there's maximum possessions in that. You're playing 7 games. That's maximum games. In this case, Georgia Tech needs to limit the possessions, limit it to a 1-game series to maximize the variance.
Wait, I think I see what he's saying.
I do see what he's saying. I think I'm just like,
The variance being the winner. So the
Correct.
variance
Yes.
in a large number of possessions, there is very little variance in the winner. It's
And-
primarily going to be the
which
better
is-
team.
Yeah.
If you play less possessions, there's greater variance in potential outcome because. Okay, man, I'm there now. I got there.
I mean, it's late at night, so I'll give you all a break on that. But that is, yes, that is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's what Georgia Tech needs to do. On the flip side, I think Georgia is going to do what they've done all year, which is try to have those long, tantalizing drives where they limit the possessions so you force Georgia Tech into being forced to throw the football. Get the lead early, force Haynes King to throw the ball because they're running out of time and running out of possessions. When you limit the amount of time in a game and you're in the lead, the opposing team is going to be pressed. You get away from the run game almost immediately, and it can really hurt you. Because of that, I think this could be a potential. If Georgia tries to run their long, tantalizing drives, which they're more successful than not on, if Georgia Tech just gets one little turnover luck on one of those drives, I think this is a game Georgia Tech has a good chance in. Y'all have thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with basically everything you said. I also will say Georgia Tech is susceptible to turnovers as well. So you play that game, and suddenly you're the team that has that one turnover.
Yep.
Haynes King throws that pick 6 last week. He does something like that. A fumble happens. But Georgia just has to be watching film, licking their chops at what teams have done,
Yeah.
what offenses have done against Georgia Tech recently. Now the question is, can you go out there and execute? Because I think if they go execute their offense, Georgia Tech's defense just doesn't have a chance. And then it becomes, can Georgia Tech offense play perfect to keep them in this game and have a chance to win?
Yes.
And they could. I do think we've seen a lot of defensive improvement from Georgia over the past couple weeks. That scares me a little bit if I'm Georgia Tech. That being said, you do have the horses to establish a run game in spite of that. But it is just a concern. It's just like there's an avenue I see where Georgia does shut down Georgia Tech's offense. I don't really see an avenue where Georgia Tech shuts down Georgia's offense. Georgia could shut down Georgia's offense. Georgia Tech's not shutting down Georgia's offense.
Sure.
But, man, it should just be an absolute grind of a game. I think we're going to see a ton of Chauncey Bowens, Nate Frazier, Gunnar Stockton will run it some, and then the exact same on the other side as well. And the last thing I have, if you're Georgia, just don't let Haynes King beat you. Don't be in the spot where you look up in the fourth quarter and he has 20 rushes for 150 yards, and he's converted every third down on QB power possible. Just don't end up there, and I think you'll be in good shape. Anything, Sanders?
No.
All right, well, we can get into picking this game. I'm going to go ahead and make the prediction that whoever gets, and if they maintain it for at least one possession, the lead first will win this game. So I think whoever strikes first and then is able to maintain that lead for at least one possession when they get the ball back and they still have the lead with that possession will win this game. So let's say Georgia Tech scores on the first drive. Georgia goes down, kicks a field goal. I think Georgia Tech wins.
That's crazy. Wait.
Because I think they'll be able to run the
Okay,
ball.
so what if no? Okay, so if Georgia Tech doesn't score and Georgia doesn't score, Georgia Tech scores, gets the ball back, still has the lead. You think Georgia Tech wins?
Correct.
So it's not. So the first
Regardless
team,
of when it
the
happens.
first team to have a lead and maintain it for possession.
Yes,
wins.
will win this game, and that is the key to it. I think that's what you look for.
I'll agree with that because I think Georgia's going to get a lead first, and I think Georgia's going to win. So, sure.
Well, good thing you weren't stealing from my pick. I'm going to take Georgia Tech to cover the spread. I won't pick against Buzz, but I will pick Georgia and ride the fence. So I am picking for both of my teams at this point. Georgia, my SEC champ, and Georgia Tech, Buzz.
Sure.
Give me GT to cover the 13.5. That feels like too many points for the game of this magnitude. I get Georgia has the high offensive output, but 13.5 also screams backdoor cover.
I'll take Georgia to cover. That's also a backdoor cover for Georgia, right? If they're up 7 and they go down and score a touchdown, and then Georgia Tech doesn't answer.
That would be a backdoor cover.
Yeah, it feels a little less backdoory because if it's like really that late, they probably just kneel it out.
Yeah.
But in a sense, it's still backdoor. I'm also going to take Georgia. I hate taking big spreads in rivalry games, but I just despise what I've seen defensively from Georgia Tech, and I really like the way Georgia's playing down the stretch. I think they've really gelled and found something. And
do you think this could be another situation where
machine
Georgia scores on like every possession like they did against Ole Miss?
Yeah, I think it'll be a thing if they score on all but one. So
I will be shocked if they score on every possession just because it's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
True.
Yeah, I mean, that's very fair.
Yeah, there'll probably be a fumble or who knows, something crazy happen.